This video will show you the steps I took in my first time trying to set tile. I chose a medium-sized hexagon tile, which sells for $5 a sheet. I needed 46 sheets to cover the floor of my bathroom. I borrowed a tile saw from my friend Russ and got a lot of good advice from him and Scott. Tiling is intense because once the tiles are cemented down, there's no easy way to scrape it off and try again. It is not for the faint-hearted, but good results are absolutely worth the effort.
Here is the floor of the bathroom. It's vinyl. It's old. It's stained. It's about 5 foot by 8 foot. I'm going to be putting in porcelain tile for the first time. So wish me luck. Here's the bathroom with the floor scraped off. This black part is cement, and then there's a little like white coating on it. I don't know what that is, but it's really hard, so I'm going to leave it down. The cabinet was here, and took off the toilet and scraped it, but I still need it. It's back temporarily on some cardboard. And I think this is going to look amazing. At least a lot better.
This piece of the wall has two different situations. The wall on the left meets the floor, and that part will be covered with a baseboard. So the tile will also be covered with a baseboard. So it doesn't have to meet the wall exactly. I have like a little half-inch of space there that's going to be covered up. So it doesn't matter what that looks like. And then on the right side is where the tile meets the bathtub. That is going to be 100% visible. There's no baseboard there. It's just going to be right out in front. So I've got to cut 3 little tiles there just for this one piece. Cut 3 little half tiles to fit. And the gap's got to stay consistent because I'm not going to be able to hide any of that except for maybe a tiny bead of caulking after the fact.
Here I have 3 separate tiles to illustrate something I discovered while I was putting down whole sheets of tile. During my dry run, where I was cutting sheets out and fitting them together to see how it would work and get the little edge pieces cut where they would meet the wall and such, I was worried because I ended up with whole sheets that were penned in on both sides, and where I wasn't able to maintain a nice gap between the tiles. And I was afraid that whole sheets would go in and be too close and have gaps that were too small. But it turns out that when you put in a sheet, the netting that connects them underneath is flexible. So you can glue down most of the sheet, cement it down with a thin set. So pretend that these two are cemented down. And this one's got cement under it too, and it's connected by net to these two, but you can still push it, the third one, back and forth, even though it's connected with a net. So you do have some flexibility, even though they are tied together with that netting. You can still push them a bit. Also, I started off with no grout, obviously, while I was gluing them down. And so when I eyeballed the spaces between them, I wanted to make sure that they were exactly the same, because with one just like a 1/16 of an inch smaller, you can see that that's a different gap than these are. So I was very meticulous. I tried to be, and definitely didn't do it perfect, but did a great job, I think. And then I filled it in with white grout. And the white kind of obscured any imperfections in the gap size. So if these gaps are black, like if using a highly contrasted grout in between them, you'll be able to see minute problems in the gap spaces. But if you're using a non-contrasting grout, it hides a lot of like tiny imperfections in the size of these spaces. So obviously the best thing is to make them perfect. Take your time and make them perfect. Don't worry about the thin set drying while you're placing them. Just take your time. All right, this is the dry fit. None of this stuff is glued down yet, but I am putting everything down to see how the edges fit and what kind of trying to cut tiles to fit into all the exacting little corners to get the fit right. And it is amazing. It's taken hours, but it's made me face all the little corner problems. But I like how it's turning out. I pulled up all the tiles, it's just a dry fit, and set them into boxes. I've got them labeled pretty well. I would say actually extensively, so that I know which particular tile goes in which particular place. I have some things marked on the floor and on the wall too. Just in case you're not tiling everything the same exact day that you do the dry fit, it's going to be easy to forget where everything is. So I'm just about ready to start mixing. All right, I've got one complete row down and 2 half rows right to the door on that first one. I've mixed a new batch of thin set, a little thinner than the last, and it's going down pretty well. It's not too bad to keep the gaps between the tiles. It's a little easier because they actually stick down and they don't move very easily. So now I'm trying to work fast, but not that fast. It seems like there's a long enough drying time where I don't have to panic or anything, although I'm glad I don't have to cut any tiles yet. I'm also trying to resist painting myself into a corner here, a position where I have to walk over the tiles, but I don't think that's going to happen. All right, well, my back hurts, but I'm happy with how this is coming together. There's some gaps that are quite thin and some that are too fat, but nothing I can't live with. and I've just got this little bit left here. It's behind the door, so as you can tell, I'm standing on the tile I just set, which I think is a no-no, but I couldn't figure out a way to resist painting myself into a corner. So here I am. That's the last of it. And then I'll have to let it set for 24 hours. We'll see. All right. Starting with grout in kind of a hidden corner of the bathroom. This part will be actually under the cabinet that I have here. So my first shot at grouting shouldn't be visible to visitors in the bathroom. I mixed up this grout. It's a paste. And I've got 2 buckets of water ready to go to wipe down. All right, this is all the grout in. It is white on white, and it looks pretty awesome. It's incredibly bright. And the last step here is to polish it off. It's like a sheen of grout that you just wipe off with a dry cloth. And because it's white on white, the contrast is going to be the shiny tiles and the dull grout. All right, here's the floor. I've buffed off a lot of the sheen of grout that was on here, and the tiles look great. There are places where I left a little too much grout behind. So Once this grout dries, you can walk on it again, but it's a nightmare to get off, or maybe not a nightmare, but it's work. So I am scraping with a little plastic tool, shaking the camera. So that's how hard it is to get off once it's dry. So this is my way of telling you that you want to sponge it off. Be patient and sponge it off when it's wet. Otherwise, you're going to be chiseling it off, with a plastic chisel. And eventually, it's done. This is the final product. I'm super thrilled with it. This is the hardest home improvement project I've ever done, but it's also the most satisfying. It took 4 weekend days plus. I'd never done it before, and I think might have been more meticulous than you have to be. But I'm thrilled with how it turned out. Using this bathroom every day is like being in a hotel room where everything's nice and beautiful. So super satisfying. I would like to add that I don't think I mentioned before that I had heard that you start with the tile along a seam that's most visible. So maybe that's when you're standing at the sink washing your hands, or maybe when you're sitting on the toilet, what you're looking at, you should start with that first so that you get that perfect. And then as the tiles come away from that, if you get a little imperfect away from that, it's okay. That's the best thing to do. So that's it. I will try to have a breakdown of the prices of all the little pieces and bits, because I ended up going to the hardware store every single day, sometimes twice a day while I was working on this, because there was always more to buy.
All right, here's some before and after shots. Here's the entryway before and after. Before and after. Here's a look into the bathroom before and after. There's the sink after I pulled it out. So that's before and after. Before and after. One more. Look out towards the exit before and after. Then the prices. Total materials, $342.